Welcome back to our second KC JazzWorks video, diving into the rich history of Kansas City jazz. If you missed the first video, please check it out on our YouTube channel. And always follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and all the social medias. We're excited to bring you a new educational video in our series delving into the history, the performance, the practice, and the magic of America's greatest art form, jazz. From the first days of music here in Kansas City, the 1910s and 20s would bring about a few developments that would eventually change the landscape of popular music in the world. Kansas City was a veritable melting pot of culture and a landing spot for many great musicians who would contribute to the communal, ever-refining tapestry of jazz. Musician Dave Lewis moved to Kansas City from Chicago, and in 1917 created the Jazz Boys, a 7-piece group that gained popularity playing white dances at the McHugh Dancing Academy, which was at 15th and Troost. Although they were only in existence for about 3 years, they were well liked and featured some legendary musicians from Lincoln High School, Walter Page and Leroy Maxey, among others. From this period, there were a few figures that emerged looming large on the local and eventually the national scene, namely Bennie Moten, George and Julia Lee, Andy Kirk with the star pianist Mary Lou Williams, a figure that we will delve into more deeply in a future video. From the 18th and Vine neighborhood, Moten got an early start in music, learning piano from his mother, and then studying with esteemed figures Charles Watts and Scrap Harris, who was a student of Scott Joplin. He attended Lincoln High and cut his teeth in the clubs near his boyhood home, learning not only the professionalism of performance, but of the music business as well. He was well liked for his demeanor and by his musicians, to whom he was incredibly generous. Moten was an early figure in establishing the local 627 as well. In 1922, his Bennie Moten Orchestra started as a 5-piece band and would grow in size to sonically fill the halls they performed in. His group's recordings for OK in 1923, including Elephant's Wobble, that you're listening to now, were some of the first recordings showcasing the Kansas City sound. You could hear hallmarks of the local stylings, a 4/4 rhythm versus the 2-feel favored in New Orleans and New York, head charts, which were loose, heavily improvised melody statements that would give way to strings of extended solo flights, and the tight, sometimes intricate background figures that supported and gave excitement to the solos. Moten had a fantastic band, including a young pianist from Red Bank, New Jersey, named Bill Basie. Another very popular group, the brother and sister first started as a quartet in 1919 and, like others, would grow their ranks as the spaces in which they performed got bigger and bigger. Lee was almost the antithesis of Moten, notorious for his poor treatment of his band, including his sister, and an egregious womanizer who kept a frantic step ahead of the convoy of broken hearts he'd leave behind. He was quite charming, however, and his and Julia's voices would sing and shout over the band, a pioneer in establishing the 4/4 groove that is now synonymous with Kansas City jazz. Julia was a fine barrelhouse pianist and a classically trained vocalist who created sublime harmony with George, as well as gained fame with risque songs like He's Tall, Dark, and Handsome and Won't You Come Over to My House. Lee's band eventually gained a fantastic arranger in Jesse Stone, a great band leader in his own right who was ahead of his time, developing a very detailed arranging style reminiscent of Fletcher Henderson and Dewey Redman, and helped create the rock and roll genre, penning tunes such as Shake, Rattle, and Roll and Flip, Flop, and Fly. After cutting his teeth in the Oklahoma City, Tulsa territories, Andy Kirk made his way to Kansas City. He faced some trouble with the American Federation of Musicians, which led him to joining the local 627 here in Kansas City, allowing him the freedom to play anywhere. Kirk's bands were very popular with the dance crowds at 18th and Vine and held court at the Playmore Ballroom, playing novelty and commercial hits. While we will be focusing on her in greater detail in a future video, Kirk's fantastic pianist Mary Lou Williams was an integral addition to the band and spoke for nearly everyone when she would gush over her love for Kansas City, the people, the food, hospitality, the activities. One of the great moments in the Kirk Band's tenure in Kansas City was a duo of Battle of the Bands with Fletcher Henderson, the legendary New York band leader. In September of 1929, they squared off at the Playmore Ballroom, then at Paseo Hall, battling to a draw. Even though Henderson's ensemble represented the larger band size of the East Coast, he had 16 members versus Kirk's 12, and the more intricate arrangements of the New York sound. Eventually, Lee's group would disband with many players assimilating into Moten's group. Julia would go on to some fame recording for Capitol Records and then establishing herself as a popular performer here in Kansas City until her death. Kirk very much established the Kansas City sound, saw Mary Lou go on to great fame and influence, and eventually would retire from music to pursue business endeavors. Moten, sadly, would die young as a result of a botched tonsillectomy, and his band members would go on to achieve fame in Count Basie's organization. This generation of musicians would pave the way for greats such as Buster Smith, Jay McShann, Joe Turner, and Pete Johnson, and Charlie Parker. We will discuss those folks in a future video, but stay tuned for next time when we delve into what made Kansas City sound so special and differentiated it from the sounds coming out of New Orleans and New York. See you then.